the keeper of the sleeping stars, a moondrift sleep story. Hello, my friend. Welcome back. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight, to this quiet space we share together, where the world slows down and the only thing that matters is the rise and fall of your breath and the soft, wandering path of your imagination. My name is Michael. I am an Irish storyteller. And tonight, I want to take you somewhere extraordinary. Not to a city, not to a landscape of hills or harbors or cobblestone lanes. Tonight, I want to take you somewhere much older than any of those things. I want to take you to the place where the night itself begins, to the edge of the sky where the last light of day meets the first dark of evening, and where someone, something, has been at work for longer than any of us can truly conceive. Tonight's story is called The Keeper of the Sleeping Stars. But before we go there, I want you to settle in with me first. I want you to let this moment become yours completely. So if you haven't already, let your body go heavy. Let your shoulders sink. Let your jaw unclench, because I suspect it has been holding tension you didn't even know was there. Let your hands open, palms resting softly, fingers loose. Let the space behind your eyes go dark and wide, like a room whose lamps have been turned very gently, one by one, down to nothing. And breathe. Just breathe. There's nothing for you to do right now. Nothing to remember, nothing to solve, nothing to prepare for. Whatever the day brought you, it is done now. It has already become the past. And the past is a country you don't need to visit tonight. Tonight we are going somewhere else entirely. I want you to imagine that you are lying outdoors, not on rough ground, but on something soft, perhaps thick summer grass, still warm from the afternoon sun that set an hour ago. The air around you is cool, the kind of gentle cool that you draw into your lungs with gratitude rather than discomfort. There is no wind to speak of, only the very faintest movement of air, the kind that carries the smell of leaves and earth and something indefinably clean. Above you is the sky, and the sky tonight is something that most of us in the bright and busy modern world almost never actually see. There are no city lights here, no orange glow on the horizon blurring everything soft and uncertain. The sky above you is black in the way that only very old and undisturbed places are black. A deep, velvet, almost physical dark that seems less like an absence and more like a presence. More like something that has gathered itself, slowly and with great patience, over millions of years. And in that darkness, the stars are out. Not 2 or 3 stars visible between the smudge of clouds and the sodium haze of street lamps. Not the handful of bright ones you can make out from a back garden on a clear night. The stars are all out, every one of them. And there are, can you imagine, approximately 9,000 stars visible to the naked human eye across the entire surface of the sky. And from where you are lying right now, on this soft, dark hillside, you can see roughly half of them. 4,500 points of light, some bright as polished pins, some so faint that you can only make them out when you don't look directly at them, when you let them slide into the soft edges of your peripheral vision. The Milky Way arches above you. It is not a metaphor tonight, not a word on a page. It is a literal river of light, a slow, dense, cloud-like wash of silver stretching from one horizon to the other. It is the light of 100,000 million stars, all of them part of the same vast, slowly spinning galaxy that we call home, and most people alive today have never seen it, not truly. More than 1/3 of all the people on Earth now live in places so bright that the Milky Way is simply gone from their sky. And in North America and Europe, the figure rises to 8 people out of every 10. But tonight, for you, it is here. It is here, and it is extraordinary, and it is the backdrop against which our story will be told. Are you comfortable? Are you settled? Good. Then let's begin. There is a figure at the edge of the world tonight. She has been there every evening, at every edge, for longer than the mountains have been mountains. She moves from west to east, which is the direction from which darkness always comes, and she carries with her something that looks, from a distance, like a lamp. A small lantern with a flame inside it that burns in a color you cannot quite name. Not gold, not white, not the blue of electric light, but something older and quieter than any of those. Something that reminds you, when you look at it, of the precise quality of light that falls through a church window onto a stone floor in the very early morning, when no one else is there. Her name in our story tonight is Asha, and she's the keeper of the sleeping stars. This is her work. This is what she has always done, every single night since the night that nights began. She walks the underside of the sky, which is not nothing, which is not simply darkness. The underside of the sky is a vast country of its own, if you know how to see it. There are hills there made of compressed silence. There are rivers of deep indigo. There are roads that only she knows, worn smooth by the passage of her feet across 10 billion nights. And along those roads, buried in the dark like seeds in winter earth, are the sleeping stars. Every star, you see, must sleep. This is one of the things that the old stories understood and that the modern world has almost forgotten. We think of stars as permanent things, fixed points, reliable, eternal. We name ships after them and steer by them and put them on flags and tattoo them on our skin. We think of them as the one truly unchanging thing in a world that changes around us constantly, bewilderingly, without permission. But the stars sleep. They sleep during the day, when the great burning light of the sun fills the sky so completely that nothing else can be seen or heard or felt. They retreat into themselves, those billions of burning hearts, and they rest. They fold their light inward the way a night-blooming flower closes its petals at noon. They wait. And every evening, as the sun begins its descent and the sky begins to darken, the keeper must make her rounds. She starts, as she always starts, in the west, in the old Greek imagination, and it is worth spending a little time there, because the Greeks were among the most devoted and lyrical stargazers our world has ever produced. The first star of the evening had a name and a face and a story. He was called Hesperus, the evening star, son of Eos, the rosy-fingered goddess of the dawn, and the Titan god Astraeus, who was himself the god of the dusk, and the stars, and the art of reading the sky. Hesperus was the personification of what we now know to be the planet Venus, seen in the western sky just after sunset, burning with a steadiness and brightness that made ancient sailors catch their breath and say a quiet word of thanks. The poet Homer called Hesperus a carrier of light. He was depicted in ancient art as a young man of great beauty, winged sometimes, or crowned with a soft luminescence, holding a torch whose flame matched the warm, white gold light of Venus as it hung in the darkening west. He was the herald, the announcement, the first lamp lit. When Hesperus appeared, the Greeks knew that the night had arrived in earnest, that the great turning of the heavens had begun its nightly performance. They greeted him the way you might greet the first candle lit in a house at evening, with a small breath of relief, a loosening of something that had been held tight all day. The keeper knows Hesper as well. She passes him every night, there in the west, and they exchange a look of mutual recognition, the way that people do who share the same shift, who understand without explaining what the work requires. He burns his steadiest for her as she passes, a courtesy, a small professional respect. She touches the first stars awake with the tip of her lantern, which sounds gentle, but is really a more complex and extraordinary process than that description suggests. Because stars, you understand, do not simply glow. The light that reaches your eyes when you look up at the night sky from this hillside, the light that has been traveling for years, in many cases for hundreds of years, in some cases for thousands of years, just to touch your retina in this moment. That light was produced by a process that takes place deep inside a star, at its absolute core, under conditions of pressure and temperature so extreme that they don't really exist anywhere else in the natural universe. The process is called nuclear fusion. It is what happens when hydrogen, the simplest, lightest, most abundant element in existence, the element that makes up roughly 3/4 of all ordinary matter in the universe, is compressed so tightly by gravity, heated to temperatures of around 15 million degrees Celsius, that individual hydrogen nuclei begin to fuse together. They stop being hydrogen and they become helium. And in the doing of it, in that transformation, they release energy, not a little energy. Not energy in the amounts that we think of when we talk about a match striking or a furnace burning or even the controlled explosion of a jet engine. Energy on a scale that the human mind was not really designed to hold. Our own sun, which is a perfectly ordinary, medium-sized star by the standards of the galaxy, converts approximately 600 million metric tons of hydrogen into helium every single second. And in that conversion, approximately 4 million metric tons of matter are transformed directly into energy, according to the most famous equation in the history of science, E equals mc squared. 4 million metric tons of mass every second becoming pure light and heat. And yet, for all that violence, for all that incomprehensible scale, what reaches you on this hillside, after traveling 150 million kilometers across the vacuum of space, is something warm enough to grow a sunflower, but gentle enough not to hurt your eyes if you shade them. The universe handles the transfer of energy with an elegance that no human engineer has ever quite matched. When Asha wakes a star, what she is doing in the terms of our story is giving permission. She is saying, "You may shine now. The world is ready for you. The darkness has arrived that makes you visible. Come out of yourself. Expand your light. Be present." And the star, rousing from its diurnal sleep, does something remarkable. It doesn't simply switch on the way an electric bulb does. The light from a star's core doesn't actually travel to the surface directly. It bounces. It is absorbed and re-emitted, jostled from particle to particle through the vast interior of the star, in a random walk so complex and so tangled that a single photon of light, a single particle of energy born in a fusion reaction at the solar core, takes, on average, somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 years to travel from the core of the sun to its surface. 10,000 to 100,000 years just to escape the star's own body. And then, once it reaches the surface and bursts free into space, It covers the remaining 150 million kilometers to Earth in just 8 minutes and 20 seconds. So, the light you see when you look at the sun is, in a sense, ancient. It was born before human civilization existed, some of it. It has been making its way toward the surface of the star for longer than agriculture has been practiced on this planet. And then, it crosses all that distance in less than 9 minutes. The Keeper understands all of this in the way that you understand the mechanics of your own lungs, not consciously, not in words, but in the body, in the working. She knows each star she wakes not by its name in our catalogs, but by something else. By the quality of its light as it opens, perhaps. By the particular way it stirs. A master of any craft comes to know its materials with an intimacy that cannot be fully taught or fully explained. It must be lived, accumulated night by night, until it is simply part of you. She moves east now, deeper into the territory of the rising dark. Above the equator, in the northern half of the world, the stars rise and set in patterns that the ancient Greeks mapped with obsessive and loving attention. And they did not merely map the patterns, they told stories about them. They gave those patterns names and histories and personalities and grudges and love affairs and moments of terrible failure and moments of unexpected grace. There is Orion, the great hunter, his belt of 3 stars, Al-Nitak, Al-Nilam, and Mintaka strung in a nearly perfect line across the winter sky. He was placed there, depending on which version of the myth you prefer, either by Zeus to honor his greatness, or by Artemis in grief over his death, or by the gods in something like compromise. Since Orion and the scorpion that killed him, the constellation Scorpius, are positioned on precisely opposite sides of the sky, so that when one rises, the other sets, and they never share the sky at the same time. Even in death, the conflict between them continues to be carefully managed. The universe, in the Greek imagination, had a bureaucratic side. There's Cassiopeia, the vain Ethiopian queen who boasted that her daughter Andromeda was more beautiful than the sea nymphs, the Nereids. She was punished for this by being placed in the sky in such a way that she circles the pole star forever, spending half of every night upside down. A petty revenge, perhaps, but effective in the telling. There are the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, daughters of the Titan Atlas, and the sea nymph Pleione, who were pursued across the earth by the great hunter Orion, were transformed first into doves and then into stars to protect them, and now spend eternity in the sky, being forever almost chased by the constellation of their pursuer. Some say only 6 of them are visible to the naked eye because one, Merope, hides her face in shame at having married a mortal rather than a god. Others say the missing sister is Electra, weeping for the fall of Troy. The Pleiades appear in the star lore of the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Hindu traditions of India, the cultures of the Maya and Aztec, the indigenous peoples of North America, and in the Dreamtime astronomy of the Aboriginal Australians, who call them the 7 Sisters too, and whose stories about them carry some of the same themes of pursuit, of transformation, of women outrunning something dangerous by ascending to the sky. There is something in that story that the Keeper recognizes. She moves among the stars the way a shepherd moves among a flock they have tended for decades. She knows which ones are steady and which ones are variable, which ones burn with a cool blue-white that means enormous heat and youth, which ones glow deep red, which means age and expansion, a star in the late afternoon of its long life. When Asia reaches each star and it opens its light, she pauses a moment. She does not rush. This is work that cannot be rushed, and she has known this since the beginning. There is a quality of attention required that is, perhaps, the oldest and most difficult quality to cultivate in any sentient creature, the ability to be fully present to what is in front of you, without reducing it, without filing it under a category and moving on. Each star, no matter how many times she has woken it, is woken tonight for the first time. That is how she has always understood her work. Below her, the world is going to sleep. This is the part of her work that she loves most, if love is not too small a word for what she feels. She can see it happening, the sleeping of the world, the way you might watch a tide come in slowly from a high point on a cliff. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in stages, in waves, in the individual extinguishing of one light after another. In a city somewhere, a child is being told that it's time to put the book down. The protest is brief. The light goes out. In a farmhouse somewhere else, an old farmer has fallen asleep in his chair before the evening news is over, his hands still folded in his lap, from a habit formed when work filled them, and there was nothing to do in the evening but rest them. In a hospital, a woman in the early hours of recovery from surgery has been given something to help her sleep, and the thing has worked, and her face has unclenched from the day's pain into something more like peace. In a city apartment, a young man who has been studying for an exam he is anxious about has finally stopped reading the same paragraph for the fourth time and laid the textbook face down on the floor and closed his eyes. The world goes to sleep at an angle because the earth is a sphere tilted on its axis, and darkness moves across it slowly and unevenly, following the curve of the planet. The keeper sees this the way you might see the progress of a shadow across a valley floor on a partly cloudy afternoon. It is the most beautiful thing she knows. And as each person closes their eyes, as each small, complicated, exhausted consciousness releases its grip on the day and lets itself fall into the soft country of sleep, Aisha feels something she can only describe as a particular quality of silence. Not the absence of sound. Somewhere there are always sounds, sirens and owls, and the breathing of sleeping animals and the low murmur of a river, but a silence underneath the sound, a silence that is the sound of the world resting, the sound of 7 billion hearts that are, for these few hours, asking nothing, demanding nothing, simply being. It is a sound that fills her. And above those sleeping people, in the sky that is now dark and wide and clear, the stars are fully awake, burning in their steadiness, their light traveling for years, for centuries, just to reach the eyes of the ones who might look up. Most of them, tonight, will not look up. Most of them are asleep, but the stars burn for them anyway. Let us go with Asha now, as she walks, and let us look at some of what she sees. She is over the Sahara Desert. It is 2 o'clock in the morning local time, and the desert is cold in the way that deserts become cold once the sun has been gone long enough. A dry mineral cold that is not unkind, only honest. The sand is silver gray in the starlight. There are no artificial lights for hundreds of kilometers in any direction. The sky here is one of the darkest and most intact in the world, and the stars above it are reflected in nothing. There is no water here to double them, but they do something almost as remarkable. They cast shadows. On a clear, moonless night in the Sahara, the starlight alone is bright enough to cast a faint shadow on the sand. This is not a poetic exaggeration. It is a physical fact. The combined light of thousands of stars, arriving together, is genuinely enough to make the world dimly visible to a human eye that has been in darkness long enough to fully adapt. The keeper walks above the Sahara with a particular kind of unhurried attention. There is a camp below her, 3 tents, a group of travelers who have come into the desert specifically to see the sky, who have ridden camels for 2 days to get far enough from any light source that the sky becomes what it was before electricity made it nearly invisible to most of the world's population. They are asleep now in their tents. 3 people from 3 different countries who met for the first time 6 days ago, and they have already become the kind of friends that happen quickly in extreme and beautiful places. They are asleep, but they will wake before dawn because they agreed to. Because one of them, a woman who studies physics at a university in Sao Paulo, told the others that she has always wanted to see the sky turn from full dark to first light, to watch the stars go out one by one as the sun approaches, and the others said yes. Because that is what people say when they are in the desert and the world feels like it is offering them something rare. Asha likes this camp. She bends slightly as she passes over it. Not in a physical sense. She does not have the kind of body that bends in the ordinary way, but in the sense of attention, of inclination. She pays them a particular kind of regard. She moves on north. She is over the Mediterranean Sea. It is restless tonight, the way the Mediterranean always is in autumn, with a sea swell running from the northwest and a fishing boat somewhere below, making its slow way home with its lights on the water. Sailors have been navigating by stars across this sea for at least 3,000 years, possibly longer. The Phoenicians were doing it in the first millennium, before the Common Era, using what we now call the constellation Ursa Minor, the Little Bear, and specifically its tail star, which we call Polaris, the North Star, to find north on a cloudy night or in unfamiliar waters. The Phoenicians called it the Phoenician star, a proprietary claim that the Greeks, not to be outdone, eventually overrode. In Norse tradition, Polaris was the end of a vast, invisible spike around which the entire sky rotated. In Mongolian mythology, it was a peg that held the heavens together, the single still point around which everything else moved, which is, in observational terms, not entirely inaccurate. Polaris sits within 1 degree of the celestial North Pole, and if you watch the northern sky for any length of time on a clear night, all the other stars appear to circle it in slow, counterclockwise arcs. It is the one star that doesn't move, or rather, the one star that barely moves, that stays close enough to be the fixed star, the anchor of the sky. This was enormously useful when you were crossing open water without instruments, without GPS, without any way of knowing where you were except by looking at the sky and reasoning carefully from what you saw. Navigation by stars is one of the oldest and most reliable intellectual technologies our species ever developed. The Polynesians used it to cross the Pacific Ocean, thousands of kilometers of open water with no land visible, navigating by the rising and setting positions of stars, by the patterns of waves and swells, by the color of the water and the behavior of birds. The ancient Egyptians used it to align the pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned to the cardinal points with an accuracy of less than 1/10 of a degree. And to track the rising of the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, whose annual return above the horizon just before dawn signaled the approaching flood of the Nile, the most important agricultural event in Egyptian civilization. They called Sirius Sopdet, and they personified it as a goddess, because a star that could tell you when to plant your crops was a star worth worshipping. The keeper smiles at all of this, the navigating, the aligning, the planting, the worshipping. She has watched it for millennia, this human habit of reaching upward toward the stars, not merely in admiration, but in practical need, pulling from them knowledge, pulling from them comfort, pulling from them the reassurance that the universe is ordered, that things recur, that the arc of the night has a shape that can be learned and trusted. It is one of the things she finds most endearing about the species below her, this need to find meaning in the sky. They have been doing it as long as they have been fully human, perhaps longer. Cave paintings in France and Germany suggest that prehistoric humans were tracking the lunar cycle and possibly the positions of star clusters as long as 20,000 years ago. The impulse to look up and to ask what is there and what does it mean appears to be, in some sense, part of the definition of being human, part of the price and the privilege of having a mind that is large enough to wonder. She is over Europe now. She has been working her way across time zones as the Earth rotates and the night is deepening, and the people of France and Ireland and Portugal and Spain and Germany have been asleep for some hours now. Those who can sleep, which is not everyone, which is never everyone, and for those who lie awake in the dark, she has a particular care, a particular tenderness, because she knows that wakefulness at 3 a.m. is its own kind of suffering, its own particular loneliness, and she tries to let her light reach those rooms, tries to let them feel, if they have a window, if the curtain is open an inch, the faint silver presence of the stars. Most of them don't have a window open wide enough. Most of them are in cities, and the city light has washed the stars away. This is something the keeper thinks about more than she once did. It is a relatively recent development, very recent, in the scale of her existence. In the span of about 150 years, human beings have covered their night with artificial light on a scale that has fundamentally altered the relationship between the world below and the sky above. Before electric light, every person on Earth went to sleep under a sky that looked more or less like the one above this hillside where you are lying now. Every farmer, every sailor, every scholar, every child in every city, from London to Babylon to Chang'an, they all fell asleep under the stars. They knew the stars the way we know the faces of people we see every day, casually, without making a project of it, by simple, repeated exposure. 99% of people in the United States and Europe now live under light-polluted skies. 1/3 of all the people on Earth cannot see the Milky Way. There are, right now, whole generations of children who have grown up in cities and have never in their lives seen the real night sky, who genuinely do not know what they are missing. Because how can you know what you are missing if you have never experienced it? A NOAA scientist named Chris Elvidge, who worked on a global survey of artificial night sky brightness, said something that has stayed with me since I first encountered it. He said, "We've got whole generations of people in the United States who have never seen the Milky Way. It's a big part of our connection to the cosmos, and it's been lost. A big part of our connection to the cosmos." The keeper does not mourn exactly. She is too old for mourning in the usual sense, but she notices. She notices the way you notice a gap in a row of houses where a house used to be, the absent space more present sometimes than what surrounds it. She wakes the stars above those bright and flooded cities, and she wakes them with the same care she always has, and they burn with the same faithfulness they have always burned. But below them, the people cannot see. She hopes, sometimes, that something will change, that the light will be turned down a little, that the gap will be filled, that a generation of children will go to a dark field somewhere and lie on their backs and look up and see what their great-grandparents saw every night of their lives. She keeps walking. Before she reaches the British Isles, she passes above Scandinavia. And here, the mythology of the night sky takes a different character than it does in the warmer south, more austere, more concerned with endurance than with beauty, more interested in what the sky demands of you than what it offers. The Norse people, who lived under long winters of genuine darkness and short summers of endless light, developed a cosmology in which the sky was not so much a garden of stories as a map of forces. The universe in Norse mythology was structured as a great tree, Yggdrasil, whose branches held the 9 worlds and whose roots reached into the underworld and the primordial wells of fate and wisdom. The sun and the moon, in Norse tradition, were not deities in the Greek sense, not fully realized persons with personalities and desires, but were instead pursued across the sky every day and every night by wolves named Skoll and Hati, sons of a giant wolf called Fenrir. The sun ran from Skoll, the moon ran from Hati, and would do so until the end of the world, Ragnarok, when the wolves would finally catch them and swallow them, and the stars would fall from the sky like sparks from a dying fire. Until that moment, the chase continued every night and every day, and the stars held their positions not as fixed certainties, but as temporary ones, as things that were in place for now, but would not always be. There is something remarkably honest about this mythology. The Greek conception of the stars as immortal heroes, permanently placed in the sky by the gods, carries an implicit guarantee those stories will never change. Those patterns will never dissolve. The Norse sky offered no such guarantee. The patterns were real and present and navigable, but they existed within a universe that had a definite and violent end, and everyone knew it. This gave the Norse relationship to the night sky a quality of urgency that is missing from the Greek one. You navigated by the stars tonight because tonight was what you had. The guarantee of tomorrow was never given. The Norse navigators were extraordinary. The Vikings crossed the North Atlantic without instruments more than 1,000 years ago, without magnetic compass, without the astronomical tools that later European navigators would rely upon. They used the stars when the stars were visible, which in northern waters is not always. They used ocean swells and currents, which run in consistent directions, and the behavior of birds, and the color of the water over shallow banks, and a tool called a sun compass when the sun was low on the horizon but present. And on overcast days and nights, there is reasonable evidence, still somewhat debated among historians, that they may have used a form of natural crystal called Icelandic spar or calcite, which has a property called birefringence. It splits light into 2 beams, and by holding it up and rotating it until the 2 beams are of equal brightness, a navigator can determine the position of the sun even when the sun itself is behind clouds. The Vikings found Iceland, and then Greenland, and then Vinland, what is now the coast of northeastern North America, around Newfoundland, by navigating across open ocean, using methods that modern scholars are still not fully certain they understand. They did it routinely. They did it well. They did it in conditions that would be extreme for a modern vessel, with full instrumentation, in open wooden boats with no shelter, in some of the most volatile weather on the planet. The stars guided them. Not the same stars that guided the Mediterranean sailors. Exactly, the northern skies show different constellations at different times of year than the Mediterranean skies do. And the Norse navigators would have relied more heavily on the circumpolar stars, the ones that never set below the horizon in high northern latitudes. But the same principle, the same impulse, the same reaching upward into the dark for something fixed, something reliable, something that would tell them where they were when the world around them gave no landmarks. This is what Asha has been providing for as long as navigation has been practiced on the open ocean. She has been providing the landmarks of the sky, the fixed references that allow a person lost in the featureless dark to say, there is north, there is east. I am not lost. I know where I am. The comfort of not being lost is one of the most fundamental comforts a living creature can experience, and the stars have been offering it for free every clear night for the entirety of human history. Now she is over the British Isles. It is the deep middle of the night. In Ireland, where I was born, the sky is sometimes extraordinarily clear. Those islands at the edge of the Atlantic, washed clean by the weather that comes in from the west, and on a night like this one, the stars are as present as I have ever seen them, even through the haze of distant city light that blurs the horizon. When I was a child, I remember lying in the back field behind our house on nights when I should have been in bed, looking up at that sky and feeling something I could not have named then and can only barely name now. The sense of having been given something that I had not earned and could not repay. The sense of being very small and very held at the same time. That feeling is one of the oldest feelings human beings know. The Egyptians had a word for it. The Japanese have a word, mono no aware, which is the gentle sadness of beautiful things. But the sky at night is more than sadness. It is something that overwhelms the grief in it with something else, something larger. The Greeks gave the sky a name, or rather, many names, because the sky was not to them one thing, but many things, many layers and qualities and persons. There was Uranus, the primordial sky god, whose body was the vault of heaven itself, a great curved thing of bronze studded with stars, his hands resting on the earth at the farthest east and his feet at the farthest west. There was Nyx, the goddess of night, one of the first beings to exist, older even than the Olympian gods, so ancient and so powerful that even Zeus was afraid of her. In the evening, Nyx drew what the ancient texts call a curtain of dark mists across the sky, cloaking the light of aether, the shining blue sky of day. She was the very substance of the night, not its ruler exactly, but its nature. She did not govern the dark so much as she was the dark, the same way that the ocean is not ruled by water but is water. Nyx gave birth to Hypnos, the god of sleep, and to Thanatos, his twin, the god of death, and to Morpheus, the shaper of dreams. This Greek theological genealogy makes a kind of profound sense, the way mythological thinking often does when you look at it long enough without trying to debunk it. Sleep is a child of the night. Dreams are a child of sleep. The night generates the conditions in which the deeper parts of the human mind are allowed to become active, to process, to create, to connect things that the waking mind keeps carefully separate. Night is generative in ways that day cannot be. The darkness is not an absence. It is a particular kind of presence that makes certain things possible. Asha and Nyx are contemporaries, though they move in different registers. Nyx is the night itself. Asha is the one who lights it. There is a useful distinction in there somewhere. She is over the ocean now, the vast middle of the Atlantic, and here there is nothing between her and the water for 1,000 kilometers in every direction. The ocean at night, in the middle, away from all coastlines and shipping lanes, is one of the last truly dark places left on Earth. There are no boats visible below her in this particular stretch, no lights, nothing. Just the water, dark gray-black under the starlight, moving in its enormous, slow way, breathing almost, the swells running long and patient towards some shore they will reach in a few days. The stars reflected in the water are broken by the waves into moving points of light, shivering and reforming, shivering and reforming. It is as though the ocean is trying to keep its own star chart, and not quite managing it, and not quite giving up. The keeper walks above it and feels the particular solitude of the open ocean, which is a different quality of solitude from the solitude of the desert or the mountain or the forest. The ocean's solitude is moving. It is going somewhere. It has direction and purpose even in its emptiness, which makes it feel less lonely than it sounds. She thinks, as she sometimes does, out here in the middle of nothing, about time. The light of the stars she's waking tonight has been traveling for varying lengths of time. The closest star to our sun, Proxima Centauri, is 4.25 light years away, which means its light takes 4 years and 3 months to reach us. The star Sirius, the brightest in the night sky, is 8.5 light years away. 8.5 years of light travel just to cross the gap between it and us. The stars of the Pleiades cluster those 7 sisters who were pursued across the sky and placed there for safety are about 440 light years away. The light leaving them right now will arrive here in 440 years. The people who will look up and see that light have not yet been born. They may not yet have been thought of. And at the far end of what you can see with the naked eye, which is a surprisingly short distance in cosmic terms, though it sounds large in human ones, are stars whose light has been traveling for something close to 1,000 years. The starlight touching your eyes tonight left some of those stars around the year 1020, around the time the Norse explorer Leif Erikson is believed to have reached North America. Around the time the Song dynasty was flourishing in China and producing some of the most sophisticated art and technology the medieval world would see. There is something in this that takes the ordinary weight of a person's anxieties and not trivializes them, but reproportions them. The stars above you have been making their way toward you for longer than recorded history. They are committed, they are patient, they are not interested in your deadlines or your difficulties. They are simply coming, as they always have, and they will reach you tonight, and tomorrow night they will still be there, and the night after. This is, perhaps, one of the reasons that looking at the night sky has always had a calming effect on human beings. It is not merely aesthetic. It is not merely the beauty of the thing, though the beauty is real and profound. It is something else. It is the feeling of being located in something much larger than yourself, something that was here before your troubles began and will be here after they end. It is the feeling that there is a frame around the picture of your life, and the frame is the universe, and the universe is in no hurry, and the universe does not panic. Asha knows this effect she has on the world below. She does not produce it consciously. She only does her work, walking the sky, waking the stars, keeping the night lit. But she knows it happens. She sees it, sometimes, in the face of a person standing in a garden looking up, or a child who has been allowed to stay up late, or an old man sitting on a porch in the summer dark. A particular quality of stillness comes over a person who is truly looking at the night sky. Something lets go in them. The shoulders drop a fraction. The jaw unclenches. The breath deepens and slows. This is the keeper's gift to the world below, though she never intended it as a gift, only as the doing of what needs to be done. Before she crosses to the Americas, she passes above a stretch of the ancient world that organized the sky more systematically than almost any other civilization before the scientific age. The world of Babylonian and Persian astronomy, whose careful records and rigorous observations formed the bedrock upon which Greek and then Arab and then European scientific astronomy eventually built. The Persians inherited from the Babylonians a way of seeing the sky that was both practical and profound. They identified 4 stars as The royal stars of Persia, Aldebaran in the constellation of Taurus, marking the east, Regulus in Leo, marking the south, and Antares in Scorpius, marking the west, and Fomalhaut in the southern sky, marking the north. These four bright stars, spaced roughly 90 degrees apart in the sky, were considered the celestial guardians of the four cardinal directions, the watchers at the four gates of the cosmos. The Babylonians, who developed this tradition first, called them the four pillars of heaven, and the idea is very old. It appears in Babylonian texts as far back as the period around 1500 years before the Common Era. Aldebaran, the bright orange eye of the bull in Taurus, 65 light-years away, burning with the warm reddish-orange light of a giant star in its old age, was the watcher of the east, the royal star of the spring equinox. In the era when the tradition was formalized, it was associated with integrity and clear purpose, with success that comes to those who remain honest in their intentions. Regulus, the blue-white heart of the lion, in Leo 79 light-years away, burning far hotter and brighter than the sun, was the watcher of the south, associated with great power and military success, but carrying the specific condition that revenge would undo everything it had built. Antares, the great red supergiant at the heart of Scorpius 600 light-years away, one of the largest stars visible to the naked eye, burning with a deep and unsettling red that really does, on a dark night, rival the color of Mars, was the watcher of the west, associated with success through perseverance and with destruction for those who abandon their purpose at the critical moment. And Fomalhaut, the southern fish's single bright eye, burning blue-white and alone in a relatively starless region of sky 25 light-years away, was the watcher of the north, associated with eminence that endures only if built on honest foundation. Each of the royal stars carried a promise and a condition. This is not an arbitrary arrangement. It reflects a sophisticated ethical cosmology, the idea that the blessings of the sky are not simply given, but are contingent on the quality of the person who reaches for them. The universe, in this tradition, is not indifferent to human behavior. It is watching. The stars at the four gates of heaven are witnesses. The keeper does not hold any particular opinion about whether the stars actually influence human affairs in the way the ancient tradition claimed. She has watched too long and seen too much to be dogmatic in either direction. What she knows is that the Persian and Babylonian astronomers were among the most careful, most persistent, most rigorous observers the world has ever produced. They tracked the movements of the planets across the sky for centuries, accumulating records that allowed them to predict with extraordinary accuracy when planets would be at certain positions, predictions that later Greek mathematicians like Hipparchus found invaluable. Their system of dividing the sky into 360 degrees, which we still use today, came from Babylonian astronomy. The 60-minute hour and the 60-second minute trace their origin to the Babylonian base 60 numbering system, which was itself adopted partly because it was convenient for the angular calculations of astronomy. Every time you glance at a clock, you are using a system of time measurement whose origins lie partly in the sky watching of people who lived in the great river valleys of Mesopotamia 4,000 years ago. This is what it means when historians say that civilization is built on layers. The layer you are standing on was built on another, and that on another. And if you dig far enough down, you eventually reach the bedrock, which is always, in some form, the attempt to understand the world by looking carefully at it. The keeper passes above the ancient land between the rivers, the crescent of fertility that the great civilizations of Sumeria and Babylon and Assyria and Persia all understood as the center of the world, and she feels the weight of all that looking, all that recording, all those nights of someone standing in the dark and watching the sky with the full seriousness of their intelligence and their devotion. She keeps walking. Let us follow her now over North America. She has crossed the Atlantic and arrived on the eastern seaboard, and the great sleeping continent stretches out below her. It is late now, genuinely late. The kind of late where even the people who went to bed the latest have been asleep for an hour or two, and the ones who always rise early are still 2 or 3 hours from waking. This is the stillest time. This is the hour that has no name in most languages, but which anyone who has ever been awake in it knows as a distinct country of its own. Neither last night nor this morning, neither yesterday nor today. A gap in time where the ordinary rules seem to have been temporarily suspended. In this hour, the keeper's work is at its fullest. Every star is lit and burning. The sky is as full as it gets, and the world below is as quiet as it gets. And the two together produce something that does not have a good word in English, something that the Japanese concept of mano no aware gestures toward but does not quite reach, something that the Welsh word hiraeth comes closer to a longing that is also a presence, a beauty that is also a weight, a sense that the world is, right now, in this moment, more itself than it usually manages to be. She is above the great plains, and below her the fields are black, and above her the sky is white with stars, and the two seem almost to have traded places, the dark below and the light above, so that it is difficult to tell, for a moment, which way is up. She is above the Rocky Mountains, and the peaks are dusted with early snow at the high elevations, and the snow is blue-white in the starlight, and there are elk somewhere in the valleys below, standing in the cold and dark with their great heads lifted, watching the sky with the unhurried attention of creatures that have never been taught to look away. She is above the Pacific coast, and the ocean is beginning again on the other side, and there are fishing boats out early here, heading west, their lights small and determined on the huge dark water. And as she walks these distances, she is thinking, as she always does at this hour, of the ones who are sleeping below her, not in the abstract, in the particular. She thinks of the child who is afraid of the dark, who has a nightlight on the wall shaped like a crescent moon, casting a small warm glow on the ceiling of their room. She thinks of how, even for that child, the darkness outside the window is populated with light, not overwhelming light, not the flood of noon, but the patient, ancient, traveled light of the stars. She thinks of how that child will one day, maybe on a camping trip, maybe in a backyard, maybe on a road trip when the car stops at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, and the grown-ups are occupied, and the child looks up, see the sky the way it really looks, and will feel, for the first time, that feeling of proportion, that feeling of the frame around the picture. And something in that child will change, very quietly and without announcement, and will never quite change back. She thinks of the old man lying in a hospital bed in a city, in a room where there are no windows, but whose mind is full of a memory from 60 years ago, a summer night, a field, a sky full of stars. A woman he loved then, who is gone now. The memory of that sky has become, over decades, a country he returns to in his mind when the present is difficult. The keeper cannot reach him directly, but the light she has woken tonight is out there, beyond the hospital walls, burning the same as it burned that summer night 60 years ago. Because stars do not change on a human timescale, because stars are burning on a scale of millions of years, and 60 human years is nothing to them. His sky is still there, unchanged. She thinks of the astronomer, alone in an observatory in the Chilean desert, the Atacama, one of the driest places on Earth, and therefore one of the places with the clearest air and the darkest sky, making observations of a galaxy that is 300 million light years away. Making observations that will become data, that will become a paper, that will become part of the accumulated human understanding of the universe, added to the pile of understanding that has been growing since the first human looked up and thought, "What is that?" She loves the astronomers. She loves them the way you love the people who take your work most seriously, who look at what you do every night and spend their whole lives trying to understand it. They would be embarrassed, perhaps, to know they were thought of that way. Scientists are not generally comfortable with the language of appreciation, but she loves them anyway. The sky begins to change above Australia and the southern hemisphere. Down here, the constellations are different. Or rather, the northern hemisphere constellations are present but upside down, which disoriented European navigators who crossed the equator for the first time and found the Southern Cross where they expected Polaris, found Scorpius riding high where they expected Orion. The sky above the southern hemisphere has a different character from the one above the north. The Milky Way core passes more directly overhead from many southern latitudes, making it more dramatically visible. On a clear night in the Australian outback, the Milky Way is not a suggestion, not a hint. It is a presence. It occupies the sky. And it was here, in this country, that has been continuously inhabited for at least 65,000 years, possibly longer, making it the oldest continuous culture on Earth, that some of the most sophisticated and extraordinary star knowledge in human history was developed. The Aboriginal Australians are sometimes called the world's first astronomers. Their astronomical knowledge was encoded in ceremony and story and song, in the oral traditions that carried it across generations, not in written texts, but in something arguably more durable in culture itself. In the stories that people tell each other, as long as they remain a people, they use the stars for navigation across the continent, for tracking the seasons, for knowing when particular food sources would be available. But they also did something that no other astronomical tradition did in the same way. They looked at the dark patches of the Milky Way as constellations, not just the bright points. The emu in the sky is a famous example, a constellation made not of stars but of the dark clouds of dust and gas that interrupt the Milky Way's glow, forming, from the appropriate angle and time of year, the unmistakable silhouette of an emu. The emu in the sky is not a metaphor or an artistic interpretation. It is a practical astronomical tool. When the emu's neck appears above the horizon just after sunset in April and May in some regions, it is time to look for emu eggs, because the actual emus of the actual land below are nesting at that time of year. The sky was a calendar, a map, a library, an encyclopedia, all at once, held in the pattern of light and dark above a country that has been the same sky for tens of thousands of years. The Karatgurk, a group of 7 sisters in the mythology of the Wurundjeri people of Victoria, were the keepers of fire. In the dreamtime, they each carried a live coal on the end of a digging stick. When they ascended to the sky, their fire sticks became the Pleiades star cluster, their glowing coals rising into the dark, making a small bright cluster at the edge of the sky. There is something in this story that resonates very directly with the keeper's own work. The Karatgurk carried fire. Asha carries a lamp. The impulse is the same, the impulse to bring light into the dark, to make visible what was hidden, to take something that burns in a small and precious way and carry it somewhere it can be seen. Let us stop here for a moment, above the Pacific, and talk about color. If you look up at the stars on a genuinely dark night, and you let your eyes adjust fully, which takes a minimum of 20 minutes in complete darkness, as the eye's rods become active and the brain shifts from cone-based color vision to the more sensitive monochrome vision of low-light conditions, you will begin to notice that the stars are not all the same color. This is one of the things that a dark sky reveals that a light-polluted one does not. In a city, the few stars visible all look approximately the same pale, whitish yellow. But in a true dark sky, you begin to see the differences. Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, is a very faint blue-white. Betelgeuse, the red supergiant that marks the upper left shoulder of Orion, is distinctly orange-red. And it really is orange-red, not merely slightly warm in tone, genuinely orange-red, if you have dark enough skies to see it clearly. Arcturus, the fourth brightest star in the sky, and the brightest in the northern hemisphere, is a warm, unmistakable orange. Rigel, which marks the lower right of Orion, is a cool, brilliant blue-white. These colors are not random, and they are not decorative. They are information. The color of a star tells you its surface temperature, and its surface temperature tells you what stage of its life it is in. Blue-white stars like Sirius and Rigel are the hottest stars, burning at temperatures of 10,000 degrees Celsius or more at the surface. They are typically young stars, recently formed in cosmological terms, burning through their hydrogen fuel with ferocious speed. A star like Rigel is so massive and burns so intensely that its expected lifetime is only around 8 to 10 million years, a blink of an eye in stellar terms, compared to a sun-like star's 10 billion. Red and orange stars like Betelgeuse and Arcturus are on the other end of things. Betelgeuse is a red supergiant, meaning it has exhausted the hydrogen fuel in its core and has expanded enormously as a result, its surface cooling as it spreads. Betelgeuse is so large that if it replaced our sun at the center of the solar system, its outer layers would extend past the orbit of Jupiter. It is also, in cosmic terms, nearing the end of its life. At some point, and when astronomers say at some point, they mean within the next 100,000 years or so, which is a very specific window. By stellar standards, Betelgeuse will undergo a supernova explosion. It will, for a few weeks, be the brightest object in the night sky by far, brighter than Venus, bright enough to be visible in full daylight, bright enough to cast shadows at night on Earth, even though it is 650 light-years away. When Betelgeuse goes supernova, the light of that explosion will take 650 years to reach us. There is a reasonable possibility that Betelgeuse has already exploded right now, tonight. The light simply has not arrived yet. We will not know until the light gets here. This is one of the most vertiginous facts about the night sky, if you sit with it long enough. What you are seeing when you look at the stars is not the present. It is the past. The star as it was when its light left it 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 400 years ago, 1,000 years ago. You are not looking at the sky. You are looking at a record of the sky at different depths of time simultaneously. The close stars show you the very recent past. The far stars show you the deep past. And the most distant objects visible to the naked eye, the Andromeda galaxy, which is just barely visible as a faint smudge on a clear night, show you how that galaxy looked 2.5 million years ago, which is around the time the earliest members of the genus Homo were beginning to appear on the plains of Africa. When you look at Andromeda with your naked eye, you are looking back to before humans existed. The keeper of the sleeping stars understands this in a way that no living human can fully grasp, because she was there for all of those times. She was there 2.5 million years ago when those photons you are seeing tonight left the Andromeda galaxy, and she has been working every night of those 2.5 million years, and she will be there when the light arrives at your eye. The continuity of it, the unbroken thread of night across all of recorded and unrecorded time, is something she carries in her, like a memory that is also a body, like a history that is also a presence. Asha knows this about Betelgeuse. She has been tending it for a long time. She knows, in the way that the keeper knows all things about the stars she wakes, that it is drawing toward something. She has no more specific knowledge than that. She does not know the timescale in years or centuries. She only knows the feeling, the way you know when autumn is genuinely over and winter is beginning, not by a specific temperature or a specific date, but by a quality in the air, a quality in the light, a quality of the thing itself telling you where it is going. When Betelgeuse goes, she will be there. She will be there on that particular night, when the explosion's light finally reaches the edge of Earth's atmosphere and begins to fall. When the sky to the southeast brightens suddenly and dramatically, and people all over the northern hemisphere step out of their houses and look up in astonishment. She will watch the sky change and feel something she cannot fully name, something between grief and gratitude, the way you might feel at the end of a very long friendship that has been, on the whole, a good one. But that is a night far in the future, or far in the past, and we do not know which. Tonight, Betelgeuse burns orange-red in the shoulder of the hunter, and the keeper has woken it, as she always does, and it shines with its characteristic warm light. And it is, in this moment, perfectly and completely itself. She is not young, Asha. She does not have a birth date in any sense that would be meaningful to us. She came into existence at around the same time as the first stars, which means she has been working for somewhere in the region of 13 billion years. The Milky Way galaxy formed approximately 10 billion years ago. The solar system, the sun, and the Earth, and all the rest formed roughly 4.5 billion years ago. When Asha first walked above the Earth, there were no people. There was no life at all, only the young, cooling planet, its surface still partly molten, bombarded by asteroids. Its atmosphere a thick brew of nitrogen and carbon dioxide and water vapor. The first life, single-celled organisms, without even a nucleus. The deep ancestors of all subsequent life appeared approximately 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. And for the next 3 billion years or so, that is essentially all there was. Single cells, doing the slow work of transforming the chemistry of the planet. She kept lighting the stars for those 3 billion years. The stars do not require an audience. They do not need to be appreciated. They burn because that is what they do, because the same laws of physics that govern the first stars govern the ones burning tonight, and no consciousness is required for the governance of those laws. But Asha was there anyway, walking her route, doing her work, in the era when the only living things beneath her were invisible to the unaided eye. She watched the first multicellular life appear about 600 million years ago. She watched the great explosion of animal diversity in the Cambrian period, when the ocean filled in a cosmically short time with creatures of bewildering variety, things with eyes, things with shells, things with the precursors of spines and limbs and all the body plans that would eventually become fish and amphibians and reptiles and mammals, and at the end of that long chain, us. She watched the first vertebrates come onto land. She watched the great extinctions. There have been 5 major mass extinctions in Earth's history, periods in which the majority of species on Earth were wiped out by catastrophe. And the life that followed each extinction built itself out of the survivors in ways that were impossible to predict from what came before. She watched the dinosaurs rise and flourish for 165 million years and then fall to the consequences of an asteroid impact 66 million years ago. She watched the small, warm-blooded creatures that had lived in the margins of the dinosaur world expand into the emptied world after that extinction, and eventually become everything from bats to whales to the great apes, from which eventually came us. The first humans, the first creatures sufficiently like us to be called Homo sapiens, appeared approximately 300,000 years ago, and they looked up. From the very beginning, they looked up. Asha noticed this. She noticed it the way you notice a change in a landscape you have been watching for a long time, as something that had not been there before and was now there, irreversibly. A new quality of presence below her, a new way of being looked at. The animals had always used the sky in functional ways, birds navigating, dung beetles, orienting themselves by the Milky Way, marine animals using celestial cues. But those were functional responses, not reflective ones. The animals used the sky. They did not wonder at it. The humans wondered. They looked up and they felt the sky was telling them something beyond the seasons and the directions. And they were right. But they were also reaching beyond what the sky could tell them into something deeper, something about meaning, about purpose, about whether the universe had a face. And this reaching, this incurable, perhaps entirely unique impulse to ask the sky what it means is something Asha has been watching for 300,000 years, and which she finds, still, the most extraordinary thing she has ever seen. She is over the Indian subcontinent now, over the sleeping cities and the sleeping plains, over rivers that have been worshipped for thousands of years and temples that have been measuring the movements of the sky for just as long. In the Hindu tradition, the night sky was a vast and intricate world of its own. The nakshatra system divided the zodiac into 27 segments, each named for the star or star cluster that marked it, each with its own deity, its own meaning, its own character. The stars were not a backdrop. They were participants. They were agents. They were, in some sense, persons, not in the sense of having human form, but in the sense of having natures, of being capable of influence, of mattering to the world below in specific, describable ways. The Milky Way in Hindu mythology was seen as the Akashaganga, the Ganges of the sky, a great celestial river flowing across the heavens in the same way that the earthly Ganges flows across the plains of India. Sacred and sustaining and alive, there is a river of light above you and a river of water below you, and they mirror each other, and both of them are moving towards something greater than either of them, and both of them are holy. This kind of thinking, finding correspondence between what is above and what is below, treating the sky as an extension of the earth rather than an alien other, is one of the oldest and most persistent patterns in human thought. It appears in the Hermetic tradition of ancient Egypt and Greece, in the alchemical philosophy of medieval Europe, in the cosmological thinking of indigenous cultures on every continent. The sky and the earth are not opposed. They are versions of each other. The same patterns recur. The same principles govern. To understand one is to understand something about the other. The keeper has always known this. She has always known that what she does above the world is connected to what happens within it, that the waking of the stars and the sleeping of the people are not separate events, but two halves of the same event, two aspects of the same turning, the same vast and patient rhythm that has been turning since the beginning. She turns north from the subcontinent, briefly, arcing over the roof of the world, over the Himalayas, where the air is so thin and so clear that the stars seem close in a way they do not at sea level, not actually closer, of course, but with none of the atmospheric distortion that blurs and dims them at lower altitudes. The high peaks are white under the stars, profound and silent, and the cold up here is a cold that has weight to it, a cold you lean into rather than flee. Buddhist monks in monasteries in these mountains have been meditating through nights like this one for 14 centuries or more, sitting in the dark with the stars above them and the silence around them, and the enormous question of existence forming and dissolving in their minds, like weather. She dips east, and now she is above the sleeping breath of China. In China, the sky was understood in a way that reflected the most deeply held values of Chinese civilization. The civilization that invented the civil service examination, that developed the most sophisticated bureaucratic state in the medieval world, that organized its human life around hierarchy and order and the proper filling of roles. When the Chinese looked up at the sky, they saw an empire, a celestial empire, corresponding in structure and function to the earthly one below, a vast organization of heavenly officials and subordinates, each with their duties, their domains, their proper places in the cosmic hierarchy. The Chinese sky was divided into 5 great celestial palaces, corresponding to the 4 cardinal directions plus the center, and within those palaces were regions called lunar lodges, 28 of them in all, through which the moon traveled in its monthly journey across the sky. Each lodge had a name, a presiding deity, a set of associations with earthly events and human affairs. The planets were not merely planets, they were heavenly officials. Jupiter was the wood star, associated with growth and benevolence and the east. Saturn was the earth star, associated with authority and stability and the center. Mars was the fire star, associated with military affairs and conflict and the south. Mercury was the water star. Venus, which the Chinese called the metal star, was associated with autumn and the west, and its appearance in the sky was watched with great attention by court astronomers, because changes in the position or brightness of the metal star were believed to signal changes in earthly political fortune. The court astronomer in Imperial China was not a scientist in the modern sense, not a person primarily interested in understanding the physical mechanisms of the sky. The court astronomer was a civil servant with a sacred duty to monitor the sky for omens, to interpret celestial events for their political and social implications, and to report those interpretations to the emperor. The appearance of a comet was not merely an astronomical curiosity. It was a communication from heaven, a sign that the cosmic order had been disturbed and that the earthly order might soon follow. The emperor, the son of heaven, whose authority derived from the mandate of the celestial realm above, needed to know, needed to respond. The proper ceremonies must be performed, the proper adjustments made. This is a very different way of reading the sky from the Greek one, and from the Polynesian one, and from the Aboriginal Australian one, but it shares with all of them the fundamental conviction that the sky above is not separate from the life below, that the two are in conversation, are in relationship, that changes in one ripple into the other in ways that a careful and attentive observer can learn to track. Asia has watched the Chinese court astronomers for thousands of years. She has walked above the great observatories they built in Luoyang, in Chang'an, in Beijing, where the ancient Beijing Observatory, built in 1442, still stands and preserves some of the most beautiful astronomical instruments ever made. Great bronze armillary spheres and quadrants and celestial globes, designed with the practical knowledge of how the sky moves encoded in their structure. She has walked above the individual scholars who sat through the night making their careful records, their brushes moving across silk or paper in the flickering light of a small lamp, transcribing the positions of stars with a precision that would not be surpassed in the West for centuries. She has watched all of this with the same quality of attention she gives to each individual star total, unhurried, fully present. The Chinese astronomers were among the most devoted and disciplined in human history. Because the sky was the language in which heaven communicated with earth, every celestial event was worth recording. Chinese astronomical records going back over 2,000 years have proved invaluable to modern astronomers, studying the behavior of the sun, the history of comets, and the light curves of supernovae. When a star called SN 1054 exploded in a supernova event in the year 1054, it was recorded in detail by Chinese astronomers its position in the sky, its brightness, how long it remained visible in the daytime. That record is now one of the primary historical documents used by modern astronomers studying the Crab Nebula, which is the expanding cloud of gas and dust left behind by that explosion, and which Asha can see from above on any clear night, a faint, wispy patch of light in the constellation of Taurus, the physical remains of a star that burned for millions of years and died in a moment of light so bright that people in China and Japan, and possibly in the American Southwest among the Anasazi people, could see it at noon. She tends that nebula too. Not as a star, the star is gone, converted in an instant of explosion into the light that traveled to Chinese eyes 970 years ago, and into the slowly expanding cloud that still glows faintly in Taurus tonight. But as a memory, as a mark in the sky left by something that used to be there. She wakes it the way you keep alive the memory of someone you loved, not out of refusal to accept the loss, but out of respect for what was there and what the loss of it means. The east is beginning to lighten. It is almost imperceptible at first. The horizon in the direction of sunrise, which is east, always east. The sun's arrival never varies in its direction. Only in the exact angle and time, the horizon there is no longer quite black. It is a deep, deep blue that is almost black, but is not black. A blue that has been described in languages across the world in terms that always carry the same feeling. The feeling of something beginning. The Japanese call this time before dawn akebono, which translates approximately as daybreak, but carries a quality of gentleness, of gradualness, of something that arrives like a guest who has traveled a long way and does not want to disturb you. Asha has been walking for the whole of the night, and now she must walk back the way she came because the stars are going to sleep. This is the other part of her work, the part that is less dramatic, less celebrated, but equally important. The waking of the stars gets all the poetry the evening, the first star, the darkening, the gradual revelation of the whole blazing host of them. But the putting of the stars to sleep is, she thinks, the more skilled part of the work. It requires a different quality of attention, not the expansive, joyful attention of the opening, but the careful, steady attention of the closing, making sure that each star is settled properly, is comfortable in its rest, will be ready again tonight. The sky, as dawn approaches, begins to perform a magic trick that she has watched more times than can be counted, and that still, every morning, produces in her something that functions like wonder. The stars do not go out like candles being snuffed. They fade, they become transparent. They do not disappear so much as become unavailable, still there, still burning, but rendered invisible by the overwhelming brilliance of the approaching sun. This is one of the stranger facts of the night sky. The sun, which is just one ordinary star among hundreds of billions in the galaxy, is so much closer to us than any other star that its light completely dominates all other light during the day. Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, burns with a luminosity that is 25 times greater than the sun's. But Sirius is 8.5 light years away, while the sun is 8.5 light minutes away. That difference in distance, more than 50,000 times closer, is what makes the sun's light effectively infinite compared to any other stars from our position on the ground. So the stars do not leave. They simply become invisible, swallowed in the sun's larger light. They are there all day, blazing in the sky above the bright daytime blue, hundreds of them, thousands of them, waiting with the patience of things that have always waited and know they will be waited for in return. This is something worth holding in the mind. The stars are there right now as you read this, as you lie in your bed with the lights off and the curtains drawn. They are above you at this moment, burning in the daytime sky if it is daytime where you are, or burning in the nighttime sky if it is night, and the light is traveling, as it always is, in every direction, crossing its distances with the unconcerned efficiency of something that has always known where it is going. Aisha puts each one to sleep as the light comes. She does this the same way she woke each one with a particular quality of attention, a full and present regard. She does not do it quickly. She does not do it mechanically. She does it the way a parent settles a child at the end of the day, with care, with patience, with an attention that the child may not register but that shapes the quality of the settling nonetheless. One by one, the stars close. One by one, the sky brightens toward the east. One by one, the world below wakes up to find itself once again in the light, in the day, in the ordinary, extraordinary business of being alive on this small planet, spinning on its tilted axis around its ordinary, extraordinary star, hurtling at about 828,000 kilometers per hour around the center of a galaxy that is itself moving at several hundred kilometers per second relative to the cosmic microwave background radiation, the last echo of the Big Bang, which fills the universe in every direction equally and is the closest thing that exists to a fixed frame of reference in a cosmos that has no fixed frame of reference, none of which changes the fact that when you close your eyes tonight, you will sleep. And while you sleep, somewhere above you, in the dark or in the day, depending on where you are and what time it is, the keeper will be at her work. She will walk her route with a lamp she has always carried, and she will touch the stars awake or put them to sleep, and the stars will burn with the same faithfulness they have always burned, and the night will be as full as it always is, out beyond the light pollution and the city glow, in the true dark that is still out there waiting for anyone who drives far enough from a city and parks and steps out of the car and looks up. And below, the world begins to wake. The farmer is up before the sun, has been up already for half an hour, moving in the dark of the kitchen with the comfortable efficiency of someone who has done this every day for 30 years. The baker has been at work for hours, the bread rising and the oven already hot, and the smell of it drifting through the still cool morning air of the street outside. The birds have started. In Ireland, in the first minutes before dawn, the blackbirds begin first, a single bird, then two, then a building chorus that by the time the sun actually appears is a full orchestra of competing and overlapping songs. This is called the dawn chorus, and it is one of the most extraordinary sounds the natural world produces, and most people sleep through it. The runners and the early walkers are pulling on shoes. The overnight nurses are giving way to the morning shift. The fishermen who went out last night are coming back with their catch. The night train is pulling into the station. The world is waking. And the keeper, having completed her circuit, is back where she started, back at the western edge of the world, back at the place where Hesperus lit his lamp last evening, and where now, this morning, his brother Phosphorus, the morning star, burns white and steady in the pre-dawn sky. Because Hesperus and Phosphorus are the same, they are both the planet Venus, which is sometimes visible in the evening and sometimes in the morning, depending on its position in its orbit around the sun. The ancient Greeks thought for a long time that they were two separate stars, and then the Babylonian astronomers worked out that they were one, and the knowledge spread slowly west, and the Greeks eventually reconciled the two names. It is a good note on which to end a night's work, the keeper thinks. The star of the evening and the star of the morning are the same star. The leaving and the returning are the same movement. She has been awake all night. She is not tired the way you and I are tired. But there is something like tiredness in her at this hour, something like the satisfying weight of work completed. She stands at the western horizon and watches the sky lighten, watches the stars dim and fade, watches the night dissolve into morning. Below her, somewhere, someone is lying on their back in a field, watching the last stars disappear. Someone else is looking out a window at the sky above the city, still dark directly overhead, but paling at the edges. Somewhere, a child has woken early, too early, before their parents, and gone to the window and pressed their face against the glass and looked up at what remains of the night and found it, even in those last minutes before dawn consumes it, full and extraordinary and strangely comforting. The keeper sees this child. She holds the last star a fraction of a moment longer than she might have, just long enough for the child to see it. Then she lets it sleep. Let me tell you, now that the story is winding down, a little of what I believe. I believe that the night sky above us is one of the genuinely great facts of being alive. One of the things that we are given by being on this particular planet, at this particular tilt, around this particular star, in this particular arm of this particular galaxy. I believe that what we are losing as our cities grow brighter and the stars grow harder to see is not merely an aesthetic loss, not merely the loss of a view. I believe it is the loss of something that human beings have needed for as long as they have been human, the nightly recalibration of perspective that comes from looking up at something truly vast and truly indifferent and finding it somehow comforting rather than crushing. The stars do not need us. They have been burning for billions of years without our attention, and they will go on burning for billions more. The sun has been shining for approximately 4.5 billion years, and has, by the estimate of most stellar physicists, approximately another 5 billion years of hydrogen to burn before it expands into a red giant and eventually collapses. The universe is 14 billion years old. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Your life, my life, any human life, is a very small thing in those terms. And yet the universe produced minds capable of grasping those scales. The universe produced creatures who can look up at a light source that is 4 years and 3 months worth of light travel away and think, that is very far. The universe produced a kind of consciousness that can be moved by beauty it did not make and does not understand. This seems, when I think about it carefully, to be one of the most remarkable and improbable things that has ever happened. Out of hydrogen and helium and gravity and time, out of the same basic materials and the same basic laws that produced the stars, The universe eventually produced something that could look back at the stars and wonder. Something that could be moved by them. Something that could tell stories about them and navigate by them and name them and fear them and worship them and love them. That something is you. You are made of the same elements that the stars are made of. The carbon in your body was forged in the cores of stars that lived and died before our sun was born. The oxygen you are breathing right now was produced in the nuclear furnaces of ancient massive stars. The iron in your blood was created in supernova explosions billions of years ago. When you look up at the stars, you are not looking at something alien. You are looking at your own origins. You are looking at the furnace that made you and then gave what it made to the cosmos. We are all of us, in the most literal physical sense, made of stars. You are lying on a hillside, in the dark, or in a bed, which will do just as well and above you, whether you can see it or not, are thousands of points of light that have been traveling toward you for years, for centuries, for longer than civilizations have existed. They are arriving for you tonight. The photons of light that will touch your retina if you look up, if the conditions are right, if the sky is dark enough. If you can bear to go outside and let your eyes adjust for 20 minutes to the natural dark, the way they were always designed to adjust those photons, are completing journeys of years or centuries. They are the last light of fires that began before you were born and will go on long after you are gone. The keeper of the sleeping stars has woken every one of them tonight. She has done it with the same care and attention she brings every night. She will do it again tomorrow night, and the night after, and the night after that, for as long as there is a night to walk and a world below worth lighting for. And now, it is time to sleep. The stars are going out, one by one, above the brightening sky. The world below you, the real world, where your body is, where your bed is, where your life is beginning to warm into morning, but not yet. Not quite yet. The night still holds. The dark is still soft and wide and kind. Let yourself go further down now, into the warm country of sleep. Let your thoughts thin and simplify. Let them become less like words and more like images. Gentle, drifting images. The way dreams begin when you are not quite asleep, but are no longer entirely awake. A lamp in the dark, a field of grass. A sky full of light that has been traveling for longer than you can imagine. Traveling with one direction in mind, arriving here, arriving now, arriving for you. The keeper is overhead. She has finished her work for tonight, and the stars she woke are beginning their rest, and the ones she will wake tomorrow are already preparing themselves in the great quiet of the daytime sky, waiting for her return. You are safe. You are held. You are, right now, in this moment, exactly where you should be. Let the stars sleep. Let yourself sleep with them. Go gently now. Go very gently. Good night. If this story has brought you some peace tonight, some quiet, some of that sense of proportion and comfort that the stars have always given to the humans who looked up at them, I would be so grateful if you would leave a like on this video and subscribe to Moondrift Sleep so that you're here for the next one. We make these stories with care, and knowing that you are there, that you listened all the way to the end, means more than you know. Sleep well, my friend. The stars will be there when you wake.